Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Good, and joining me once again, 2 weeks in a row, my friend from Plus One Player, Steve Bastek. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing swell. It's been, honestly, like, these are two of the best weeks of quarantine. I get to see your wonderful face back-to-back weeks, and we get to talk about two of my favorite movies of all time. So it's been a good couple of weeks.
Well,
satisfied.
I appreciate that. And I was just thinking about this last time. I am so lucky to get to talk to a ton of people kind of through this medium. But when I was like, man, every time I hang out with Steve, I was like, it's just so easy. Like, I don't even have to think about it. I'm like, man, I just did that with Steve, and that was great. And we even had, like, technical issues last time, knock on wood. Hopefully that won't happen again. But it was like, it's like we did it, and it was fun. And I was, like, looking forward to this because you're right. We're coming back talking about Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And as I spoke with Steve before the show, I watched for the very first time the entirety of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, but I watched the director's cut, the 2 hour and 50-minute version of it. So keep that in mind, but I doubt it would change too much if I watched like the theatrical or the regular theatrical version, because I think this just added more stuff that I would have liked anyway. So
it adds some context for sure. Like obviously there was some stuff that was like, I think it was better that they left some of it out, but there's a scene we'll talk about that's actually like drastically different. Like there's one thing that happens in the director's cut where it just doesn't happen in the theatrical version.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, and anyway, like I was saying at the top too, this is the kind of the second week in a row we're talking about this specific franchise. So if you didn't watch last week's, you might want to check that out, because I have not fully watched through any of these first two Terminator films. I, for some odd reason, have seen 3 and Salvation and Genesis, but I never like Dark Fate I saw bits of, and I don't know why, but
so now you've seen the good stuff. Like the actual good Terminator.
Okay, and like, let's just start there. I really like this one, and I don't want to say things are like better than other things, because this is a very different film, and it's, again, to compare it to things like a lot of people know, it's like Alien to Aliens, where like the first movie is much more of like a horror film, and then the second one is much more of like an action movie. I'm more of an action movie guy, and I gotta say, there was some really good action in this one that holds up really well.
Oh, it really does.
And there was one thing that really like tricked my brain, and I'm not exactly sure how they did it, because I was looking at it and I was like, they did it so flawlessly that I was like, how? And the thing I'm talking about in particular is the kind of one of the early chase sequence where they're in the kind of the gully, or that kind of like that waterway it's drained out, and you've got John Connor who's on his little mini bike, and then you have the T-1000, the new liquid metal Terminator, chasing after him in a truck, which I've seen the truck jump off the bridge, which is excellent. That one looks good. But when the T-800, when the original Terminator recipe comes up and he jumps off with his motorcycle, that looked like flawless. It looked like they just did it, and maybe they did do it or something, but when he jumps off just with his Harley or whatever and lands down there, I was like, that looks like he just did it. I was like,
yeah, they definitely did shoot that, but you could, because if you look closely, it's not Arnold. Like, it's the stunt double.
Yes,
but it is that, like, that's a legit jump, and that's one of the things. Like, this movie does hold up very well, but I've obviously seen it so many times. Like, I know all like the little things where I could be like, oh, look, there's like, you can see his head in the scene where he's running through the asylum, and he goes into the elevator and like splits it open, and Arnold shoots his head, and like the T-1000's head splits open. You can see his head split open like before the gunshot goes off. So like, I've got to the point where I can pick up on all those little things. And in that gully chase scene with the truck, when he crashes the truck and it explodes, if you pause it and you look at the driver's seat, it's just a straight up dummy. Like, they didn't try to hide this thing at all. So like, if you're really looking for it, you can find the little things where like they tried to get away with it. But I mean, obviously at the time it was like a technical marvel. Like the T-1000, when he first comes out and he switches from, the liquid metal form back to Robert Patrick. By the way, Robert Patrick, phenomenal job. Absolutely great villain, because I love how at the beginning of it, where once they finally settle down and John Connor's like, time out, stop the bike, let's figure out what's going on. You just pulled me out of nowhere. I know you're a Terminator, because obviously Sarah Connor has told him all about this. And I love how Arnold's basically like, sorry, kid, you got the shitty Terminator. Like, that guy, T-1000, he's way more advanced than I am. Like, he can do things that I can't do. He's way more powerful than I am, but I'm here for you. Yeah. So I love like the little seeds that starts planting of like their relationship, because that's how this movie is so much different than the first one. Because the first one, like you said, that really was like a horror movie. It's just like a constant chase scene between the Terminator, Sarah, and Kyle. And now with this, it turns almost into this action melodrama where now you're almost like they're like this little weird dysfunctional robot dad son combo. So like there's like this family dynamic that gets added to it. And it's such a different tone, but it's so amazing. Like I can't believe that the trailer spoiled the twist. Like back then, like if you just watched the trailer before you saw the movie, it spoils the twist that Arnold is now the good guy.
Yeah.
Because if you just hid that, could you imagine? Because when you first see him and he is going into John Connor and like in the Galleria in that little hallway, and he pulls out the gun, you're like, oh, this guy's gonna kill John Connor and get down. Like that right there is like, oh no, he's good.
Yeah.
And I can't believe the trailer spoiled it. If that trailer was out for like a movie today, there would be so much uproar online about spoilers and blowing the big moments. So I'm glad that I saw it at a point where the trailer wouldn't have mattered, because I was stunned after seeing Terminator 1 and then seeing Terminator 2 and seeing how different it was.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and that's, you kind of alluded to it before, but we kind of glossed over the plot, which is very similar to just the plot from the first one, but just in case you didn't keep up with that one, it was like it was a human and a Terminator went back. Terminator was trying to kill Sarah Connor. This time it was two Terminators sent back. One of the Terminators is good and is taking the place kind of Kyle Reese, and then the other one is just like a more advanced Terminator, and they're both trying to go for John. And I thought that moment, which I have seen the gif of Arnold, like he's walking through the mall basically with a box of roses and this amazing repeater shotgun thing or whatever, and he takes it out. I thought that was the moment, like I was like, all right, just picture you sitting in the theater and you didn't know that was going to happen. And John's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I thought he was going to say, and he says it later on, but I thought he was going to say, come with me if you want to live. Like, I thought that was the moment he was going to, like, they were just going to be like, oh, just retread this right now. But they held back, they showed restraint, and they saved it for another period of time. And I thought it was way funnier when he used it later on. I was like, this movie, man, I really enjoyed it. And like you said earlier, you can kind of pick out the faults and the flaws, and I love that you can see that, because there was a few times where I noticed during like the chases where I'm like, I think John Connor turned into like a 25 or 30-year-old man, or like there's a stunt person on that, like they're trying to make like look like a little boy. And I was like,
oh, for sure. Like, that definitely happens.
But I don't know, like the fact that all of it, so much of it was practical, and for some odd reason, I don't know what it is with this one and the one before it, but James Cameron's like, I gotta show you like a little bit of the war that's happening in like the 2020s and 2030s. That's like this like big kind of like this big like, oh, like the people are fighting against the robots, and there's like this flying machine, but like they kind of shoot it so that way it could be a practical effect, because there's probably like something holding it from like above, so they shoot it so like you can't see the top super well, and it's like gunning these people down, and there's not really like a need for that, but I like that you get to see it. They're like, oh, this is like the hunter killer is still out there, and they're like, people are still fighting, but it's a losing war, and the Terminators, like the T-800s, are just walking around with two guns just shooting people and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, this is pretty good. And unfortunately, Terminator Salvation never got to that point. For some reason, it was very different. It didn't look like this. I wish it would have looked like this, you know what I mean? Like the kind of the dark future where it is like night all the time, seemingly. I wish that
a lot of night shots. Well, I feel like too, because they didn't want to. They were more likely to kind of slip in under the cloak of darkness. Like the whole Terminator concept is to try to infiltrate and kill from within. So I could see why they shot like a lot more of the darker scenes there. I noticed with this one they don't do as much of the futuristic war, because I feel like this one was so focused on, let's see if we can put an end to it. And there's that whole side track where you have Sarah going after Miles Dyson and trying to take out like Cyberdyne Systems. And I think like I said last week, where you can see how much that first experience she has with the Terminator changes her. Like you see the little glimpse of it at the end where she's traveling with the dog and she has a gun. But now you see in this one, like you hear from John Connor why she got locked up in a mental health institution was because she tried to blow up a computer lab. And so like she now has become Kyle Reese in that scene where he's being interrogated. Like there's that parallel where they stop the tape and it's like the same thing that like when they stop the tape on Kyle Reese. So I love how they kind of have those little nods to the first movie in that sense, because she really has become like, she is the sane one. Everybody else is crazy for not believing her, but she has to just sit there and take this abuse. And then when she makes her escape, when the T-1000's coming and John and Arnold are coming to basically rescue her, the look of just sheer terror. I love the way they shoot it when he's slowly walking off the elevator and she just like, you can hear like her feet like slipping on, like the tile floor, and she hits the ground and she just starts screaming, no, and like she's trying to escape, and now she's literally turning around, running back to the people who are keeping her captive, because she's like, he'll kill us all, because she just assumes like this is the same guy. And then sure enough, because John had already told him, you can't kill anybody. So now he's in his you can't kill anybody mode. So he's just beating everybody up. And I love the one girl who hits him with the cast, and he just looks at her and she's like, ah, shit. And he throws her through the window.
I totally agree. I love that part because I think Linda Hamilton does such a good job of selling like true, like I feel like she's trying so hard. And it's so evident because she is like legit. She's like, no, she like, and John, her son, shows up. Her son, she hasn't seen in a long time. She just wants to see him again. He's crouched next to her. She's on the ground staring up at the T-800, and she's like, no. And she doesn't even recognize that John is there. And it takes her a minute to be like, wait, like what? And he's like, no, he's helping us. And then they kind of like all turn around, and there's like the T-1000's coming, and she's just like,
see, because that's when they timed it well when they dropped the "come with me if you want to live." Like this is what I'm saying. Like they knew when to do the callbacks and when to bring back those lines, and they did them perfectly. Like the timing was great. It never felt like eye rolling. Like, oh come on, that's just because they did it in the first one. It's like, no, this is like. It was just perfect. Like it parallels the first one so well, but it builds off that universe that it's set up perfectly.
Yeah, the question is, how did the T-800 know that line? Because that Kyle Reese's line. Maybe that was just a thing they said a lot in the future. Well, I could imagine too, like,
because obviously, like, that you can really, if you really want to dig into plot holes in this universe, you can really find them.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things, like, you could assume is that, like, John Connor might have told him, like, hey, this will get her to, get on your side.
Yeah,
Although it's weird because like he originally didn't want to go there. He's like, it's a suicide mission. Like T-1000 already probably got her and she's probably dead. And John's like, whoa, no, we gotta go.
We gotta go save my mom. I like this movie. And I'm just gonna keep gushing about it. One thing I do want to point out, we're talking about kind of special effects earlier, and obviously this one revolutionized a lot of stuff special effects wise because of the T-1000 and the liquid metal and that kind of ability, like the it can go through, prison bars, but it can kind of come back together. It reflects surfaces. It's kind of this like almost like liquid mercury vibe to it. But then on the other side, I love that they finally added this effect that we see now more so when they're teleporting them back to the past in the beginning. When the spheres show up, it'll like cut into like a portion of the semi truck. It will cut a piece out of the ground. And it's like so nice. I was like, oh, that's a good effect. Like, and it's like kind of burning, like because they teleported in, like, which you'd think they'd be able to teleport them to a very specific point, or like near a clothing shop, but they never do, and it's always part of the fun. And I love that in the beginning of this movie, if you didn't know, you would think that the T-1000 was a human because he's way more like charismatic. He'll talk to people. He's just, you're like, oh, that's got to be the human. Clearly, Arnie's the T-800. It's got to be like the same as last time. It's like, no. Like the T-1000 is just like a better model. And they kind of gloss over like the whole, like they kind of reprogrammed the T-800 to kind of, go back in the past.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that's okay. Like, I'm like, just try to like, get to it because you just want to watch him get in there and start fighting. And a lot of their fights I think are so funny because it's a lot of just like them grabbing each other by the shoulders and just slamming each other into walls. It's like, get over here, get over. You're going into this wall. But there's a few like specific things I wanted to call out because I've seen the minigun thing, a few times as far as like the practical effects go. But when they're at Cyberdyne Systems and they're going to destroy all the stuff with the help of Miles Dyson, you get like the T-800. He's like, I'll deal with the police, and he's like, I can't do this. I can't kill anybody,
Yep.
And so he goes out there, just
you
lays
swore.
waste. Yeah,
trust me, the little smirk.
Well, trust me. Oh, and he's so excited to have that minigun in the first place, or he shoots that one security officer earlier in the legs, and he's like, he'll live, and I'm like,
he'll live.
Gosh,
yeah.
I was like, this movie's so much funnier intentionally than the first one. Like, the first one had some like funny moments, but I don't think it was supposed to be all the time. This one is like, it almost winks at the camera.
And because too, at this point, like Arnold had already done like a couple more charismatic, some slightly comedic roles. I think he'd already done like Twins by the point, like by the time this had come out. So at that point, everybody really knew it's like, all right, this guy isn't just, muscles and a robot voice. Like he is a charismatic individual. And the opportunity for him to play alongside Edward Furlong and have this father-son style relationship, it really opened up both characters, because their back and forth is what led to a lot of the comedic moments, and that it never felt, again, like I said earlier, like it never felt gimmicky or like, come on, like that was shoehorned in. It all felt organic. And so I have said numerous times, I think Terminator 2 is the greatest movie of all time, and people will always be like, oh, what about X, Y, and Z? It's like, all right, cool, you can have your movies, but like this movie blends action, drama, comedy. Like it blends so many of my favorite elements of film, and it puts them so perfectly into like this 2 hour and 15-20 minute package. So man, I love all those. I love those comedic moments, and I love that they gave Arnold the chance to actually come to life a little bit more, like those teaching moments within the car, hasta la vista baby, chill out dickwad, like all those things. It just gave that character so much more flexibility, so he's not just this walking killer. He could be more.
Yeah, oh totally. Is this the birthplace of Hasta La Vista?
Yeah, this is where Hasta La Vista baby came out from.
So I have no idea. Like, it was so weird to have John say that first. And I was like, this is what kids say? I was like, it seems like a really weird thing. But then later on, when he gets that shot on the T-1000 as he's like dipped in the liquid nitrogen or whatever, and he just says
I love that
like,
scene.
I was like, I was like, perfect. There's a lot of, and this is after like another big chase scene, but there's a moment even in there that I absolutely love. So I love the minigun stuff. I love like the little smoke grenades to clear the cops out, and it's just like, human casualty 0. But the T-800 jumps on the front of the semi, like he grabs with like one hand the top of the cab of the truck, and with the machine gun he just like kind of kneels and he's just shooting, and it's such a great shot. Like the image is so good of just like him just shooting the T-1000 who's trying to drive this truck to get John, and he's just like, I was just like, that's so cool. I was like, what? Nobody does that. I was like, oh. I was like, chef's kiss.
Oh yeah, because they're getting run down because they're in that beaten down pickup truck.
Yep. Yeah.
And he's running them down in the liquid nitrogen semi truck. And so he's like, all right, you drive. It's like, where are you going? And I love how quickly he gets from the driver's seat to on top of the semi truck, and he just sticks the gun right in his face, just blasts him. And then one of the most satisfying scenes, I don't know why this is for me, but one of the most satisfying scenes in that whole movie, when he turns the wheel to flip the truck and he's like on top of it, and then he jumps and rolls, like for some reason it's just like this perfect circle.
Yes.
That's like, that must be the robot in him. Like he just knows how to tuck and roll perfectly.
Oh, dude, I love that part too, because I was like, what is he doing? It's like, oh, he's just gonna turn the wheel and he's just gonna ragdoll off of this thing. I was like, dude, I'm like, bravo, man. You just, because when you're a robot like that, you're like, I'm fine. I don't really care. I love that scene. That whole thing is, and this is like the second or third chase. I think it's the second big chase.
Yeah, because this is the big climax. Like this is where it's all coming to fruition right at the end there. Because honestly, right from the first chase where you're dealing with like the gully chase scene with like the truck and he's on the little motorcycle, that gets you hooked because that's what you remember from the first one. You're like, all right, I remember like this action. And when you think that you have him, of course, it's way too early in the movie. So yeah, the truck blew up, but of course he's not dead. I love when the tire comes out and he points the gun at it. It's like, oh no, it's just a tire.
Yeah.
And then they drive away, and then literally 4 seconds later he comes out. It's like, you guys couldn't have waited like 10 extra seconds to see that he's still very much alive. So I thought like right from the get-go where you're like, all right, T-1000 is going to be way tougher because there's no stuffing this guy in a metallic press.
Yeah.
So I think right off the bat, you're like, wow, how are they going to figure out a way to take him out? Because I can't think of anything where like this guy can literally turn into a puddle and just reform.
Yeah.
And so you have this new formidable opponent. You have this new father-son dynamic, this dysfunctional family where you got Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor still very skeptical about the Model 101, the T-800, but she's like, whatever. He's tough. He's a big tough guy. And so this is actually one of the scenes that's different in the director's cut versus the theatrical version. So you know where they're in there after like the first big chase and they get the car and they're like, all right, we're going to let's get those wounds taken care of because obviously if he can't pass for human, he's no good. So they're in that little like garage and she's doing work on him. She's pulling out the bullets, stitching them up. And in the director's cut, she starts talking to him about like what his CPU is. And he's like, oh, well, if you turn it this way, it can become a learning computer and I can be taught things. But his base setting is not that. It's just I'm programmed this way and I just have my orders. I can't learn anything new. However, if you take the chip out, you can change it, put it back in, then I become a learning computer. So in the director's cut, she takes it out and she's about to hammer it. Like she's about to smash the chip because, again, she's skeptical of this thing, doesn't trust it. And John actually jumps in front of it, puts his hands over it and screams, no, don't do it. And she's like, we got to do it. We got to kill him. And so in that, they actually switch the chip, and that's how he, like, the hasta la vista baby, and, like, when all those learning moments, that's how he has them. But in the theatrical version, he just says, I have a learning computer. Like, he's just basically saying, I'm a robot who can learn these things. And so it's weird because now, because I love the director's cut just because more of this, the better for me. So I'm a little torn because I really think they kind of should have kept that scene in there. I understand cutting it for time makes total sense because you can't just be throwing out like 3-hour movies. Not everything's the Lord of the Rings, people.
Yeah.
So like I get that, but like something about that scene just spoke so much about like the complicated relationship that Sarah has with these types of machines, and no matter how trusting she sees John is with it, she still can't get over that hurdle because of everything she's seen. And so like I love just that crazy juxtaposition where it's like she's willing to just be like, you know what, John, I'll take care of you. I'll get you out of here. We'll go to Mexico. We'll be fine. And John's the one who sticks up for this machine. You know, he has, because all John knows is like, no, like these things sound super cool. Like he's like 10 years old. So like, of course he's like fascinated by this and the fact that he's supposed to be some amazing leader. Oh man, just that's one of my favorite scenes in the director's cut because I think it says so much about the complex relationship of the three characters.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that it wasn't included in the theatrical cut. And I get it for like time and stuff, but still, that like I think that makes it way more interesting, and that kind of goes to two of the main characters that I thought was such an interesting kind of shift in that the T-800 becomes the father figure and the best father that, you know, John's never had. But then also Sarah, you know, I didn't even see her as Kyle Reese, I guess, until you told me. It makes more sense now. I saw her more as, like, becoming the Terminator. Because when she goes to get Miles Dyson, she's like, I'm going to kill this guy no matter what. I'm going to kill him. I have to kill him. And she kind of screws up, and she finally gets a chance to, like, basically shoot him point blank and make sure that this guy who's going to eventually create Skynet is dead, and she can't pull the trigger. Like, her humanity kicks in, and, like, his wife and his son are there, and she's like, I can't, like, you know what, I can't. I was like, oh, this is so cool, because, like, she's finally realizing the difference kind of between being, like, just a machine and being the human, and, like, even though she's so dedicated, she's been stuck for however long in, you know, this insane asylum, and she's like, nope, even though I wanted this to happen, like, I want to make sure the world can continue, I'm not going to, like, do it this way, in this manner. And that scene following too, where you do get John, who weirdly enough becomes the most mature person really quickly. In the beginning of the movie, it's like, hey, it's just like a kid with his friend on his mini bike, and then
she's not my mother, Todd.
Yeah. And then later on he's like, hey man, we can't just like, we care, we have feelings, sometimes we cry. It's like when we don't hurt but we still hurt. But I love that when they're just like John, I love that he just starts taking control of these moments. Not only like what you talked about with the whole like CPU, like, you know, he's like, you know, Mom, you got to listen to me. If you don't listen to me, how is anybody supposed to listen to me? But then he goes to this place with the Terminator, and he's like, hey, he's like, show him. And he talks, John grabs like Miles' kid, and he's like, hey, do you want to show me your room? And they like walk off, and so there's Arnold, and this poor Miles Dyson, this poor guy, this tech guy who's just like doesn't understand, like he should probably spend more time with his family. He's been shot, he's wounded on the ground, his wife's like holding him, he's like bleeding, and Arnie walks in, grabs a big knife, and like cuts the flesh off of his arm and rips it off to show like the metal hand. I was like, oh,
such a good
gosh. I was like,
listen to me very closely. He's just
so
like
good.
twirling his little fingers.
I love that. That part was, I was like, that looked so good. I was like, that'd be terrifying, because they're like screaming as he's like cutting his arm open.
Oh yeah.
He's just like,
because there's so much involved with the Dyson storyline, because obviously, first of all, good thing Sarah's not the best shot, because she was pretty close to his heart there.
It's
close. It's pretty close. But and also his kid, I think his name is Jamie, clearly like the bravest kid next to Edward Furlong here, John Connor, because like that kid just went up to him and was like, hey, lady with a gun in my house, don't shoot my dad. I'm going to lay on top of him, make it much harder for you to shoot him, because now you're going to have to shoot a kid, and that's not going to be easy for you. So glad that she had that moment, because they obviously arrived a little too late. But when they're all kind of talking, and then he kind of lets on, it's like, oh yeah, we have the chip and the arm from the first one. And Sarah's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like, she's like, nobody believes me, and you people have the chip in the arm. Like, you have my proof. Thanks. So I'm the one locked up, and you assholes are turning keys at the same time, so you can just gawk at the cool metallic arm.
Yep.
So I loved it, because they show that at the early part of the movie, where him and his coworker, they turn the keys so you can see the arm in the case. And so like I love like Arnold like showing him in person, like, look, this is what you people are going to do. And he's like, this isn't good. So when they actually go to Cyberdyne to basically blow it up, one of, you know, the scene where they barge in, like the SWAT team barges in, shoots Dyson, and so Dyson's sitting there, he's like, I don't know how much longer I can hold this. You know, the main guy, the main SWAT guy who's like, everybody out now. You know who that is?
Who is that?
It's Dean Norris, Hank from Breaking Bad.
That's who it is. I was like, I feel like I know this guy from something or somewhere. I was like, I saw him just briefly. I'm like, okay.
So I picked up on that because Terminator 2 came out, I think like in 2016. It was like a re-release in 3D in theaters. So naturally, like me and my entire family went and saw it. And so naturally, at this point, I'd already seen Breaking Bad. And so when that scene happened, I was like, I heard the voice. I'm like, is that Hank? So I literally waited for the credits to roll, and I was like, that's Hank.
You're like, got him. I found him. Dude, you gotta get you start somewhere. I love it.
Yeah.
I love seeing that sort of stuff. I was also thinking about like the security guys when they originally like go into the place, and I just love the whole like Miles Dyson. He's like, yeah, I have some family from out of town, and just show them the lab
it's
or
like
whatever.
Midnight.
Yeah, and the guy's like, you know the protocol, and then they like both T-800 and Sarah draw guns on the guy, and Arnie just says like, I insist, and it's like, yes, of course. It's like, please come in. I like up until that point though, because Sarah had used the silencer, the suppressor, that there weren't like cops flooding Miles's house earlier on. It was like they could sit there and talk about this stuff. It wasn't like there was a clock, like the cops were coming and they have to like get out of there. I was like, oh, so there's like time, but then obviously, you know, it's not like that's gonna last forever. And yeah, man, it just leads in a lot of stuff. I think it's hilarious though that after that whole crazy situation at Cyberdyne, you just have the T-1000 who shows up late, and he's just on a motorcycle driving through the building. Like, he's just like, he's like looking around. He's like, where did they go? And I was like, what are you doing, buddy? I was like,
and then he just goes straight up Grand Theft Auto. He's like, I'm done with the motorcycle. I want a helicopter. He just drives the motorcycle literally into the helicopter.
Yeah, and then he just tells that guy to get out. And I like that the T-1000,
out.
He doesn't really, he doesn't kill if he doesn't like need to. And because in both series, or both movies so far, I haven't seen the dog die on screen, I just like to assume that they just let him go in a very harmful way, because that's my own headcanon, and that's just how I live my life. But I appreciate the helicopter chase sequence, because I'm pretty sure all of that's practical for the most part. Like, they drove under an underpass and like up and over a bridge, and like another helicopter with the camera was probably flying next to it, and they like went up and down together. I was like, this is really good. I was like, oh man, you are not going to see this stuff since like Mission Impossible Fallout, like with
Yeah, and I love how he just gets the idea. He's like, oh, I'll just stop short.
Yeah.
Like, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that too, because I was like, yeah, what if he's just like, I'll just slam on the brakes right now. And I love that you get like that moment with Sarah, and she's like, they're in the back of this truck trying to escape, and she's like taping or putting up bulletproof vests against one of the doors so she can kind of shoot and then duck behind it. I was like, this person, she's clearly like lived her life as just like the crazy lady who's preparing for doomsday, but like legitimately means to do so.
Well,
Like,
see, because remember we talked about this at the end of the first one, where it's like, oh, I guess she's like I think you were saying it's like, oh, I guess she's going down to Mexico, see what she does there. Now we saw it, like.
Yeah.
They go down, and it's just like, oh, Enrique. It's
Yeah.
like she made connections, and she has a giant stash of weapons hidden underground.
Yeah,
And like that was such a great stash of weapons. She knew it. Like that's a doomsday prepper.
Oh, for
you
sure.
want to get on the side of.
Totally.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, he's holding the minigun, and John's like, "Oh yeah, that's totally you," and he just kind of gives like that smirk, like, like
Yeah.
that seems sweet. I wish we could have gotten a montage, because there's like one throwaway line of John saying he's like, "Yeah, my mom kind of hooked up with anybody that could kind of teach her stuff about like the world, or kind of like, lockpicking, or shooting and all this stuff." I kind of wish we could have seen like a little bit of that, and I get why you couldn't, because this movie's already like, the director's cut's like 3 hours already. But
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it would have been nice to see that, because when we first see Sarah, it's just like, it's obviously she's very different, and she is smoking, or she's doing chin-ups and stuff, which is so great. I was like, oh, she's just getting jacked, and like these terrifying orderlies that she has to deal with, which she does.
Oh, those guys are terrible.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't take it another step further. I thought they were going to. I appreciated, though, that one got his comeuppance, that he got kind of beat up with like the broken half of a broom or whatever.
Some of that was taken out of the theatrical version. Like
Sure.
you don't, like for instance, the whole Kyle Reese scene isn't in the theatrical
Oh, that's too
version at
bad.
all. And then so the prelude to that, where it's like, I don't like when Silverman's like, I don't like the patients messing with their rooms, and then they're like, all right, we'll take care of it. That's where the scene ends. But in the director's cut, that's when they go in and like force her to take her pills and like tase her and beat her.
Yeah.
So like that's not in the weird scene where he licks her cheek. That is in because like they needed to like show like this dude fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And oh man, when she hits him across the face, it's like, yeah, Sarah, let's get out of here.
I thought for sure he was going to get destroyed by a Terminator. Like, I thought for sure it was going to be something like that. But the Terminators
Yeah.
are usually pretty nice about that. They're not, like, going to make you suffer. Like, they just be like, "Dun, you're dead." Like, so I thought for sure he was going to get dusted. But that she got to do it was even better. I appreciated that. And, man, the Kyle Reese thing, though, I liked that. I thought that was good. And, like, he kind of, he says to her, like, get up, soldier, kind of thing,
Yeah.
kind of trying to pick her back up. I was like, so that's sad to hear that that's not in the original version. That should be, I think. Oh, well.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that got cut for time. But one of the main scenes in the hospital, where like that first one where we actually get to see, Arnold and John Connor rescue her. I like where you first see the T-1000 mimicking somebody else, like, because at this point you had seen he took over John's stepmom because kills the stepdad when he's drinking the milk. Great death scene, by the
Yeah.
way. Hilarious image. But this is the one where like now he sneaks up on the security guard, and like the guy turns around, it's like, oh my god, like it's me.
Yeah.
And he does the pointy finger through the eye.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah,
no,
like
thank
that's
you.
why the T-1000 is such a good villain, because that is the most like just grotesque and painful way I can imagine just
totally.
killing somebody.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, like, his body shakes and stuff, too, and he, like, drops his, like, he's like, oh, must be my lucky day, because he gets, like, he, like, wins something maybe on
I
his
got
cup
a
of
full
coffee
house.
or whatever.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, don't say that, you're gonna die. I was like, oh, you're so dead.
You got a full house on coffee poker,
Yeah,
which
I don't
there
know
you go.
what that means. And when you said Silverman didn't have, I wasn't expecting him to be in it as much as he was, because I thought he was going to be kind of like a cameo. He's in it for a good chunk, earlier on, and I love that, like, later on he's just totally proven wrong. Like, he's just kind of sitting there and he's just like, oh my gosh. It's just
When the
like,
T-1000 walks through the door, and then he like someone has like the needle cap in his mouth, and he just like stares in his mouth agape. He's like, oh wow,
Yeah.
like this is a problem. He's in the third one, if you remember, he's in the third one very briefly,
okay.
but he's finally had his like come to Jesus moment, because he's like talking to somebody.
funny.
Oh, he's talking to Claire after like she kind of gets rescued. And he's like, you start seeing things, imagining things, crazy things, unthinkable things, and he just like keeps going on and on, and then eventually he sees Arnold again. He just sprints the other way.
He's just like, no.
it's like I love, because like Silverman really is like the perfect, just arrogant, just you just want to prove him wrong so bad, and that he's wrong, and so to like see him come to this realization in a very painful way was great. Like when Sarah breaks his arm, you broke my arm, and she's like, it's like 215 other bones in the human body, which one's next? It's like,
dude, I love that. I also like that, like with him, when he's kind of bringing around some other like maybe students or potential like psychiatrists, they deliver the expository dialogue in a much more like organic and genuine way, which I really appreciate, because I would think that like it would be hard to kind of explain this to somebody who doesn't know the first Terminator. You'd be like, what the heck? Like, I don't understand like what is happening at all. But like they do it in such a good way there. I was like, oh, that was a cool way to like bring people up to speed really quickly. If you haven't seen the movie for a long time, or if you've never seen it, you're like, okay, this lady, she's crazy. Maybe she's not crazy, like I was like, oh, okay. But obviously everybody there thinks she's totally nuts, and they like show her the videos of her being nuts just to be like, hey, you remember when you went crazy that one? I was like, why is she sitting in here with a cigarette, like watching this like she's back at the police station? I was like, oh, they're just like messing with her. I was like, poor Sarah.
Well, yeah,
like,
and that's why like when they come in after Arnold shows back up at the mall, and they're like, oh, the foster parents have been murdered, your son's missing, and this guy's back in town. And she's just sitting there silently, because she just wanted to be like, yeah, I told you all about this. Like, I warned you for years.
Yeah.
But she just silently sits there, and that's when she grabs the paperclip and plans her escape. And it's just like, because like she's always just one step ahead of all those idiots, which is why Sarah Connor has always been like a legend, because she, at first, like we talked about last week, she's just, stuck in this small town, working at this, little hole in the wall diner, getting treated like shit by the customers. And then by the end of it, she's like this battle-tested warrior. And now in this one, she's basically trying to protect John and make sure that she can set him up to be successful, even though she has literally everybody against her.
Yeah.
And so I do like how she gets a lot of vindication in this one. And that's why I still got to see Dark Fate, because I really hate the way just Terminator 3 was like, oh, she died. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's weird.
Come on. And so like I like how Dark Fate's like, nope, we're retconning it. Terminator 3 didn't happen. She's alive. Because I definitely feel like Sarah Connor deserved way better than, she died, years ago. Like, come on.
Do you think it was like a money thing? Do you think it was like or anything like that?
I know they definitely could not get Linda Hamilton for whatever reason, because I don't think she wanted to do it, because again, it wasn't like James Cameron wasn't involved with the third one.
Sure.
So I feel like she probably wasn't interested, or maybe they couldn't afford her, and so they just like killed her off, which is like, come on.
Yeah,
it's Sarah Connor. Like, she is the Terminator series.
Yeah, totally. That is kind of strange. And it made me like want to go back and watch all these other ones just again to kind of get back to Dark Fate, just to be like, okay, like what does she finally? Because I feel like in the end of the first one, she's understood the world a little bit more, and she's getting a little bit closer to like becoming the person she will be eventually. In this one, she is like, she's finally like suiting up with the guns and stuff, and she's ready to do this. And then like in Dark Fate, it looks like she's been doing this since she was a baby. Like, she's just like they just show her with like that, like the whole like the vest and the guns and stuff, and I'm like, I want that. Where are those movies? I want 10 of those movies. Like, maybe that's too many, but like just that's so cool to me. I'm like,
I know
Hamilton, man. She's pretty great. But she does a great job in this one of like the first one, she was so naive and just so like, what's going on? Like, you were her, right? In this one, she's like that crazy person who survived this horrible plane wreck almost, and she's like, no one believes me. And they're like,
it's like paranoia, PTSD, and then also the burden of knowing that she's right, but everybody else doesn't know she's right. So there's just so much wrapped into that. And like Linda Hamilton's performance is in this movie, it's captivating. Every time she's on the screen, like, you can't look away. Like we were talking about already, the scene in Dyson's home where like she's finally just like collapsing in that moment where she's got the gun and like she just can't do it, and she doesn't even say a word. It's just all in her face. You could feel every ounce of energy just shift. It goes from pure rage and aggression to just complete sadness and just a broken spirit in a matter of a moment. So there's like so many of those little things that she does so well. And then the whole last part, like that whole last scene where they've crashed the car, hasta la vista baby, he blasts them, but then he's like, uh-oh, he's forming again. But I like how they start showing you it's like T-1000 is now kind of screwed up because of the liquid nitrogen. He's like got the little glitch thing, like refreshing himself.
Yeah, you can't help it.
And then in the director's cut, like he'll grab onto the railing and he'll get like stuck to the railing, or like his feet like meld into like the ground. That doesn't happen in the theatrical one. Like they don't show that stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's more like the all that they do is they show like the little flicker, and that's supposed to just be like, all right, something's not right here.
Gotcha.
But like that whole last, like it's like a slow motion chase. Like there's like those small little bursts of action where they have the first fight with Arnold and the T-1000, where the T-1000 catches Arnold's arm and like the gear breaks his arm off. And then they have the next fight where you think he kills Arnold, where he stabs him through the chest, but then Arnold's backup battery. Gotta see this, always gotta have a spare battery, folks.
Yep, always.
That's one thing Terminator 2 has taught me. Always carry a spare battery. Kicks in, he pulls the thing out, grabs his grenade launcher, which we know has one grenade left.
Yep.
One grenade left.
That's all he needs.
And so now you got John and T-1000 are like coming at like face to face, and T-1000 is imitating Sarah because he had made contact with her earlier. He did, like, he stabbed her through the arm and was going to kill her, but that's when Arnold made his first comeback. And so you got him calling out to John. John thinks it's his mother, but then if you look in the director's cut, it shows John look down and it shows the feet stuck to the ground, so he knows that that's T-1000. But in the theatrical release, it doesn't show the feet. All it does is like you'll see Sarah Connor come from behind and she says, John, get down. And what you'd see is you see John look down and then he jumps down. So it's much more subtle.
Okay.
Like again, like I could do without all of the, oh, look, he's sticking to that again, because then there are like certain plot holes, like when Arnold and T-1000 are fighting and he throws him up against a metal wall and T-1000 like just flips himself, and so he's now facing him. It's like, why didn't he get stuck to that metal wall? Like,
sure,
if you,
yeah.
So like
Good point.
I would prefer that they just didn't show that stuff. So I'm glad that they left that out in the theatrical release. But like that last moment where Sarah's like, John, get down, and then she shoots him. She's blasting him. He's like right teetering on the edge, and she runs out of ammo. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, throw the gun.
Yeah. Throw the gun, knock him
anything. Off. But then you see Arnold come up, and he's got the grenade launcher, and he shoots that one grenade, and it just goes right into his stomach. And I love the zoom in on Robert Patrick's face when he's like, oh shit, and he blows up. And it's just such a great, satisfying death scene for this utter menace. He blows up. He's making all types of screechy sounds. Looks like a broken camel. Mm-hmm. And then he falls into the lava, and he starts just mashing about in the lava, and he starts going through a cycle of every person he imitated. And it's such a cool way to end like his run.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. They did this like maybe twice or three times. In that moment, I was thinking of it too. It's like maybe it's like a 90s thing, but to do like the slow motion, like, and it was like not like the good stuff that we have today, but like you can clearly tell that it's just like they wanted to make the scene, like the moment last just a little bit longer.
Oh yeah.
They're like, so Arnie's coming up with the grenade launcher, and it's just like, John, get down. It's just like really slow mo. I'm like, okay, I know it's gonna happen. Yeah. I'm like, but I get it. It's like it's dramatic. It's dramatic. I had a question for you though. I think it's BS that the T-1000 can turn into a floor. Because I feel like he should be doing that kind of stuff more often. Because he does it once, and I'm like, wait a sec. T-800 told me that he could transform into like anything he touches and has to cover his whole body, right? And I was like, okay, so that's like clothing and stuff. He has to like touch it, has to whatever. But I was like, he can turn into a floor? And I was like, because John even asked at one point, he's like, why doesn't he turn into like some other inanimate object? And he's like, well, it has to be the right size. So I was like, so could he turn into like a little fridge? Or something?
No, because nothing that has like it couldn't be anything that has like mechanical parts.
Yes, that part, yeah.
Like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he could turn into like a bench.
Yeah, he could definitely turn into a bench.
Bench.
Or as Arnold put it, knives, stabbing weapons.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like he should have turned into like a sneaky bench somewhere. It just been like just slowly walking around.
See, that is a thought. However, at this point, since John and Arnold and Linda had already known about him, so Sarah, John, all of them, they all know about his existence. They're going to be on the run.
Yeah.
So like he now at this point he's run out of leads,
Sure.
so he can't like figure out where he's going to be.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I can see why he can't just like wait it out. He has to be on the hunt, but he is still very creepy with his knife hands.
Yeah, well, and obviously they want to have the actor be showing off all the time, and he's always back in his police uniform. I would just think at some point you just be like, all right, what's the next easiest thing? And I would just love it if there was ever a time where they considered, they're like, what if the T-1000 was like, I'm going to go kill the president, I'm going to become the president, and then I'm going to task the entire United States to find John Connor. Like, that would have been hilarious. They're like, Mr. President,
that would have been next level thinking.
Yeah, Mr. President, we got to figure out some taxes stuff. And he's like, have you found John Connor yet? They're like, sir, we can't. We haven't found him. Like, find him. Like, we're gonna have to invade Mexico. And he's like, go now. Like, you feel like.
I'll be honest. I feel like it'd probably be easier for the T-1000 to infiltrate the Secret Service as opposed to trying to infiltrate Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, and obviously, like the T-800 is like always kind of checking out for him. And I love that there's like a moment too where even Sarah's like, well, in this twist up world, like maybe he's the best father we ever could have hoped for, and she's just gonna like leave her son with him.
I know. She's
like,
literally,
bye.
she's like, he'd never get drunk. He would never beat him. He'd never yell at him for no reason. It's just like, yeah, he actually wouldn't be that bad of a dad.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
You could just program a bunch of psychology into him.
Exactly. Yeah. And like even at the end, I think they like let it back a little bit where it's like he's not a machine anymore because John hugs him and the T-800 actually hugs him back and like closes his eyes and stuff. And it's there's like that's like a moment where I was like, I think that was just kind of Arnold being Arnold. I was like, that
moment gets me every time when he says, I know now why you cry, and it's something I can never do. That line will get me every time.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
And I like too that like he wasn't just thrown in with the T-1000. I thought originally that's what was going to happen. Because I'm familiar with the whole thumbs up sequence where he kind of lowers himself, or they lower him in because he can't lower himself down to get melted.
Can't self-terminate.
Yeah,
can't do it.
I love that because I was like, oh, it was like a big... I thought there was something else that was going to kind of like, oh, the cops are showing up, you got to go quick. I was like, nope, take as much time as you want. Like, this movie allows these scenes to breathe out or to breathe a little more. I was like, oh, that's cool, because usually it would have been like in other movies he would have said like that to John and then tackled the T-1000 off the railing, and then they would have both died in that moment. There wouldn't have been that closure like we get. And I like that. I think it's good. I think it's really good.
And I love too when he finally gets picked up after he blasts him, he just goes, oh, I need a vacation.
Yeah, there's some stuff where I was
missing
like,
an arm, he's just shattered. He's like, oh jeez.
I was like, either the T-800 like they're writing funnier lines for Arnold to say, or he's becoming more and more human all the time, where he's just like, why would you say that? But I love that he says it, because you're like, a T-800, this guy that you like, you gotta double tap these robots, guys. You really have to, because you just every time you think he's dead, he's not dead. He's
just Uncle Bob,
He's just Uncle Bob, and like
Uncle Bob.
Shout out quick to John's friend in the beginning who saves his life almost twice in a sense. Like he does a really good job at the arcade. He's just kind of like I love that. I was like, that kid's a good friend. I was like,
he's got his back.
He's got his back. I was like, that was a good friend. There's some good like supporting cast members in here, and I was like, I thought I saw the guy from Family Matters working as one of the orderlies, but I don't think that's the same guy. There's somebody else, because like the part where she's like walking out with him, and I was like, is that the? Because I was trying to see like after the whole like Dean Norris thing you're saying. I was trying to picture like figure out if there's anybody else who had like a super minor role that went on to do something way bigger. And I was like, okay, who are all these people? I was like, is there somebody else in here that's like? But I don't. Is there anybody else in there that like became famous after that I didn't pick out?
No, not that I can think of. Not like even Edward Furlong didn't really do anything after this.
Yeah, this is like kind of the only thing I know him from, and it was so. Yeah, funny.
He did like obviously like American History X, and then Pecker. If anybody remembers the movie Pecker, where he played a photographer.
Oh, that's fun. He did a great job. I thought it was so funny though. Once in a while, he would kind of screech, and some of like the lines, like it just there's no really great way to deliver some of these lines from like a 10-year-old who's just like, gotta go. And you're like, yeah, man. But I was like, he did a good job of trying to be like the only adult in the room sometimes, and he tried to have fun with things. Like he was just kind of like his mom's like, how much money do you have? He's like, a couple $100s, and he's like, well, I'll give you half of it or whatever. And she just like takes all of it, and he's like, hey, like whatever. Or earlier on when he's like, hey, Terminator, do you have a quarter? And just a practical effect, but just he walks into the phone booth and just backhands the phone. It's just all these things. He's just like, there you go, kid.
Takes
like,
one, puts it back in.
I'm like that. I was like, that kind of practical stuff you don't see as much anymore, and it makes me sad because like when you see these things blow up or like these things crash into each other, like, that's really happening for the most part. Like they really tried to do it, and kudos to them. And I think one of the reasons why they showed you a good chunk of like the future stuff too is because we never got the full melted T-800 in the like modern day. So they kind of had to show it somewhere because people be like, I didn't see the original Terminator. They're like, oh, he's in the future, and they got tons of them. They got guns. There's like one on the ground who's like kind of malfunctioning, and a dude, like a soldier, runs up and over the like this ridge, looks at him, is like, it's like that guy's like, I got one. It's like, oh, dude, you're screwed. But yeah, I don't know, man. I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was a lot of fun. And again, it was like 3 hours long, and I was like watching like, man, there's no way I'm going to get through all this in like one night, because I was kind of watching it pretty late. And I did. I was like, oh yeah. And when I was done with it, I was like, whoa, that was a lot. Like, I wanted the theme to play, though, in the movie more. And I don't know if it ever played once in the movie, because I wanted the dun 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 dun. Like, I wanted that in the movie.
I love that. I love that theme. So it really just like kicks in at like the end. Like that's really like the only time, like right before like fades to credits.
Dude, that's where I would have been putting him with when he's on the gear with the grenade launcher. I would just have that playing, just like quietly, just like building up. He's just like, dun, 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 dun. He's ready to shoot him. But yeah, all that practical stuff with the T-1000, man, like that. Stan Winston and that crew, they all did such a good job. Like, and again, it kind of pushed, movie effects forward. And unfortunately, maybe in a bad way, because there's just so much more CGI, obviously, nowadays. But that film had both. It, like, had the CGI stuff that they couldn't do practically, and as much practical stuff as they possibly could.
That's the thing is, like, James Cameron, up until, like, Avatar, was always very good with practical and CGI, mixing the two. But I feel like Avatar was just like all CGI. Like,
yeah, it's kind of hard to not, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, with that one, I was like, with Titanic, even they had like miniatures and stuff, and they tried to do like the flooding sequence, and I was like watching some behind the scenes stuff, and that stuff's nuts, by the way. But Avatar is just like, we can make whatever worlds we want, and it's like, okay. Good on you. But yeah, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I like it. I think it's really good. I had a really good time. And again, this came out in 91, did you say?
Yeah, 1991.
Okay, which is funny.
July 3rd.
That Cyberdyne computer lab reminded me a lot of like the Jurassic Park computer lab. Like I was like, oh, it's like that's like the very like 90s, like what if the computer lab was like all white and like maybe some concrete? I was like,
yeah, that's pretty much just like weird bluish hue lights, just like the stereotypical computer lab.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm glad you enjoyed both of them, because these are the best Terminator movies by far, and like I said, I still think T2 is just the best movie ever made, so I'm glad you enjoyed them.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Well, it's nice because as I like to joke with people, it's like not so much of like me like trying to watch a thing now and be like, you suck for liking this, or like I completely agree with you. It just shows me a little bit more of the person, and this just makes me like you even more, Steve, because you got good taste, my friend.
Thanks, pal.
You know what? And like this movie, I don't care who you are, check out Terminator Judgment Day. If you like action movies, if you don't like action movies, I highly recommend that you don't watch this, because you might be like, what is this? But like this movie is a lot more fun and brisk, I feel like, compared to the horror that is in. It's not like a slog fest in the first one, but it's just very different. It's such a different tone, different pace.
Yeah, I'd say the first one is much more tense, where this one is a lot more action, like you said, but I think like you said with the pacing, it's a lot different because there are moments of just pure joy, which you don't really get much of in the first one. Not a lot of happiness in the first one at all, actually.
Yeah, there's just, man, I feel like, say what people say that Arnold isn't a great actor. I don't know.
Oh, Arnold's the man.
I think he's great, especially in this one. Like they let him make some more jokes, and it's just he plays it really well. And the way that he can kind of spew out this information that's very scientific, but then also just kind of like make a little joke. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's really good.
For anybody who dares talk poorly about Arnold Schwarzenegger, I highly recommend you go on YouTube and type in Bill Burr Arnold Schwarzenegger bit. Because Bill Burr's bit on Arnold Schwarzenegger is the most spot-on interpretation of the life of Arnold Schwarzenegger I've ever heard in my entire life. And for people to criticize this man, shame on you.
Yeah.
I'd like to see you do what he has done in this country.
Yeah, also, he still looks fantastic. Like, in the beginning, I was like, maybe it looks
the
a
guy
little different.
Shredded. Yeah,
like,
the guy shredded.
I don't know if he's still like Mr. Universe, because I feel like Terminator 1 was very much like, look at the physique of this guy.
Oh, he's still big. Yeah.
But like in this one, he seemed like more like kind of cut, And
Yeah.
like for some reason, he also seemed taller or something. I was like, I was like, man, look at this dude, and he walks into that biker bar, and you're like, oh man, like you can only imagine like what people would be saying, and everybody's just kind of like looking at him, like, what the heck's going on? And I just love that eventually the people stop fighting him and they start running away. Like there's one guy who's like, and he's like, I'm not gonna. He's like, I saw a guy stab him. They're like trying to kill this dude. It's like it's not working. He's just throwing people around.
When he's walking in the biker bar ass naked, and the waitress turns the corner, and just goes, "Oh."
Yeah, they're like, like all the ladies are checking him out. All the guys are like, what?
What the hell is happening here? And before we wrap up, I do have to give a shout out to James Cameron for both of these movies doing the very subtle silhouette of the dong. In the first one, you had Arnold. You could just barely make out his penis.
Yeah.
And then in this one, you get Robert Patrick. When he's kneeling down and he turns, you can see a little there.
Yeah.
So like I said, I've seen these movies way too many times that I have now seen the silhouettes of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Robert Patrick's penises. So
the question is like, why as machines did they need that? You know what I mean? Like maybe that was
you gotta pass as human. You know, who knows what you have to do to infiltrate?
Exactly. Well, it's just like, well, at what point? You know, it's like the T-1000. They're like, we're gonna keep doing this. This guy that's like, we need to have them
for sure.
Atomically correct? Oh no, and I can't even think of the word right now. It's too much. I'll come back.
Anatomically.
Anatomically. Thank you.
Well, judging by the waitress's reaction to Arnold, I'd say a man probably was behind Cyberdyne because he's like, we got to make giant penises on all the robots. Giant penises.
I would love it if that was like a book of like anatomy next to Miles Dyson's computers, and he's like, I'm gonna make this thing so good, and he's like, and then instead of talking about like the jet that never ever gets like, or the jet pilot who never gets tired or whatever, never doesn't come in drunk or anything like that, like it's just like, he's like, what if we made it like the best humans, but they were made of machines? And he's like, look at all these books that I've made, sweetie. And she's like, you need to hang out with your family some more, dude. Like we need to go to Raging Rapids or whatever. I was like, oh, like they had a whole subplot with that family, which I like to see. That I forget that actor's name who plays Miles Dyson, but he's been in a ton of stuff. Like,
yeah, he plays Silas Stone in Justice League.
Dude, yes, he does.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait for that Snyder cut. Yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. And again, I've seen like snippets of it from the past, and it was just nice to actually like go and finally see the whole thing for what it was. But yeah, man, thank you for sitting down and like talking about it.
Hey, man. Of course. If you any other 90s action movies that pop up to you give me a shout, because I was a big fan of all those cheesy 90s action movies.
Was The Rock the 90s?
I think it was, yeah. I think it was what, like 95, 96?
Yeah, I just saw the honest trailer for it, which is super good. That movie might be Michael Bay, my favorite Michael Bay film. It's real good. That one's ridiculous, but it's really funny.
Oh man, my favorite Michael Bay is still Armageddon.
Oh,
still
dude, Armageddon's good, dude.
Yeah,
just
love it.
I don't want to close my eyes. Armageddon, and then like Deep Impact came out. Like I feel like they're like we're releasing our Astro Destroying movie, and they're like, well, so are we. And then it's just like okay, and then the only one they're like, we're only going to talk about one of them, and it's like. Okay, like, all right, it's gonna be with Bruce Willis with a bunch of like oil diggers heading up to an asteroid. You're like,
yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, doesn't that one have I can't think of his name. He played Randall from Monsters Inc. and he's also in Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, Steve Buscemi, yeah.
Steve Buscemi, is he in that one?
Oh yeah, he's one of the best parts of that movie.
I love that Steve Buscemi. I saw him like more like around like the Mr. Deeds days. So like he always was like a comedic actor, but like he can do a bunch of stuff. Like
he's incredible.
Yeah, he's not just comedy. Like he can be pretty serious. Oh man, but anyway, maybe The Rock, maybe Armageddon, dude. I'd be happy to go back and watch those ones. Armageddon's a great summer movie.
It is.
Like that's a classic like summer. Like you watch it around the same time as Independence Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, very pro like America. Maybe Independence Day more so. I don't know. Anyway, but thank you for checking that out again, and thanks everybody for listening to us talk about this. We're just gonna wind down the show here with just our quick last segments as we like to talk about these things that consume our lives and kill our time. A perfect segue into time killers. And I don't know if you've done anything different with your time killers since last week. Steve, but maybe you have.
I've still been playing Destiny 2, playing a lot of that.
Nice.
And I just watched that new movie, The Old Guard, on Netflix.
How was
Very good. It's very good.
Okay.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
It seems like they're setting up the director definitely sounded like he said he wants to do a trilogy because it's based off a comic series. So I think it's supposed to be kind of like a trilogy. So
Sure.
it ends in a way where you're like, all right, they're definitely going to do at least one other one. But it's great. We just talked about like practical action effects and stuff like that. The fight scenes in The Old Guard are some of the best I've seen in quite some time. Cool. I think you'll really enjoy it. Great movie. Charlize Theron is phenomenal.
She's
and
amazing.
then I've just been reading through my nice little got a little comic. Got the Avengers versus Thanos. Just been going through this.
Amazing.
It's been very good. I'm like halfway through right now.
That's so good, Steve. Well done. Those are some good time killers.
Yeah. What about you? What have you been killing time with?
So I just picked up it was actually gifted to me and I was reading over the weekend, the second book in the Brandon Sanderson series, the Reckoneers series. The first one's called Steelheart. This next one's called Firefight. The last one's called Calamity. It's basically about like if humans one day, like some of them got superpowers and they all turned evil, and a bunch of like regular humans trying to fight back, and what it would be like to kill superpowered individuals.
That's pretty good.
Really freaking good. It's real page turners. And if you like The Boys or anything like that, I recommend.
I love The Boys.
Dude, it's like The Boys. It's like The Boys, but not as intense. The Boys is like.
I love The Boys.
It's good.
So good.
It's just like so. It's so like. It's this close, I feel like, to almost not like adults only, but like there's so much like even Carl Urban, who I love. And it must be so weird for him, but they're like, hey, you're going to say some of the worst words in the English language, but you're going to use them kind of like using the word the and.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to constantly say it.
I can't wait for season 2 of that.
I didn't even watch the trailer because I know people are like, they're like, it's coming like September. I'm like, this is so cool. Apparently, and maybe you heard about this, but he plays Billy Butcher. They shot a bunch of stuff for season 1 with him that they took out, and they're gonna give him like his own like little minor film thing. I don't know when they released that. So I was like, dude, Carl Urban is one of the most underappreciated actors anywhere. He's so good. Like
he is really good.
Go watch Dredd, everybody. He works with this much of his face, this much the whole time. I love Carl Urban. But anyway, I'm looking forward to The Boys because that show. I just love like what if the Justice League were evil? That is such a cool concept to me.
Yeah,
it's so
and it brings like the sentiment rings kind of close to home where it's like, what if superheroes were real, but what if they were corporately owned? And like that just hits home because it's like so much shit is corporately owned. Like why wouldn't, Superman be corporately owned? That's honestly one of the reasons why I absolutely love The Dark Knight Returns so much.
Oh, sure.
Like I mean, obviously the Frank Miller comic is renowned, so I'm not like, some rare person that I really love this, critically acclaimed comic. But one of my favorite parts is the fact that like Superman became like just a puppet of the United States government.
Yeah.
And you could easily see that happening if superheroes did exist. And so I loved the spin that The Boys put on that because it was so perfectly like gory and grotesque. I was like, all right, this is great.
Yeah, it's very good. And it's weird because I've been working on a video for a long time talking about Marvel's own version of an evil Justice League, the Squadron Supreme. And I was like, I'll do this in like one video, but then I wrote like 7 pages and it might be like a 2-part thing. But I think it's so cool. And I'm still waiting for Marvel to eventually do their own Squadron Supreme thing. I really think it could be a movie they could make and people would be like, whoa, did they just make a really good Justice League movie? And people would be like, maybe they did, which would be cool. But besides that, I actually started for the first time. I've never played Yakuza, and I played Yakuza 0 today for a couple hours. It's a lot of fun, a lot of cutscenes, which is fine. It's not really great for streaming all the time, but the fight mechanics are really fun. I like the soundtrack. It's just like I was really getting into it, so I'm excited to try it out. And there's like 1,000 Yakuza games, so I'm just gonna start with 0 and see how I feel after that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of get in a little more of the Japanese mindset for Ghost of Tsushima that's coming out in a couple days. So like I was like, I'll do some Yakuza today, and then maybe I'll watch Last Samurai, and then like kind of get into it more. Which Last Samurai, don't sleep on that, everybody. One of Tom Cruise's best. You like Last Samurai, Steve?
I have not seen that, mostly because I thought it was a little weird where it's like, oh, let's do the Last Samurai movie, but we're going to star Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it's very, I get that. Once you see it, it like makes more sense, but I understand from like, if you just see the title and stuff, you're like, what? The Last Samurai is Tom Cruise? You'd be like,
I am looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima, though. I am very much looking forward to that. I'm actually kind of bummed that I'm going away this weekend because I won't get to play it until like Sunday night, but whatever.
That's okay.
Just something to look forward to Sunday.
Exactly, yeah. But I'm so stoked for that. Oh, I can't wait. And then, well, I guess we can just sort of wind down. That's pretty much everything I've been doing as far as Time Killers has gone. Just in Terminator, obviously, Terminator 2. Now I'm just like, looking at it's so funny on Netflix, like, they're like, hey, we've got Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, we've got Terminator Salvation. I'm like, you don't have 1 and 2. And like 1 and 2 are like held back. They're like, you must rent these things. And it's like, but 3, if you want 3. Here it is. And you're like,
yeah, it's for free. Just take it.
You're like, we'll pay you to take it. It's like, what? He's holding a coffin. I gotta watch that movie again. It's probably the only good thing about it. Anyway, we're gonna move to the last segment of the show, which I like to call, and it's my favorite segment, which is community feedback and questions. Now, Steve, I got a brutal question here for you, and it's gonna be tough because like I don't know if you're gonna be able to answer it. It's really difficult. This one comes in from layman's terms over on our Discord. He said, your top 3 action movies of all time, but then you can only pick one of them to be created. Which one do you pick?
Oh, it's still Terminator 2. Like, it's like, that's the one. Like, that is the movie.
You didn't even hesitate on that one.
Yeah, that's in my 8th grade yearbook. It's what's your favorite movie? And it's Terminator 2. And that was true when I was 13, and it's true now. It was true when I was 4. When I was 4 years old, I broke the VHS because I watched it too much. We had to then tape it on HBO when it was on HBO because our VHS copy of it was broken thanks to me.
Amazing. Well, okay, so what are your other 2 top action movies then?
Oh man, that's so tough to just like do 3 right off the bat.
No,
I gotta put Dark Knight on there naturally. Dark Knight was just incredible, absolutely phenomenal. And then, Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh,
for sure. Like, oh my god, that is just an absolute blast of a movie from start to finish.
Question for you about Dark Knight. I don't know if we talked about this. Does it bother you at all that they changed out Rachel's character?
No, I just think Katie Holmes made a very dumb decision not to do it.
I don't. It bothered. Like, I get it. I'm sure there's reasons why. It's just like, I just wish they would have renamed her. Like, it just like it constantly nags at me because I'm like, this is a different person. I have a continuity. I'm a stickler for it though, so that's why I'm one of those horrible people that Star Wars hates. They're just like, oh gosh, this guy, and I'm like, quick question. They're like, nope, just moving on with the movie. But anyway, okay, so Terminator 2. I was thinking about this. I think Mission Impossible Fallout would be mine. I think that movie is like, it's like so far up there as far as like trying to do as much and like push Tom Cruise to the brink of death as it possibly can. And it's just, man, that every time I watch it, I'm just like, wow, this movie is really gripping. Like, there's so much stuff in there, and it's not like him being a cool, like, I can kill a bunch of dudes. He's like, I'm just surviving in a way that most people never would. That's like, that's his character's super ability. But man, I just really like that. And that might be mine. And again, because I don't have the same like fondness, maybe in a couple years I'd be like, it's Terminator 2, obviously. But yeah, that one, Mad Max is a good choice. I would maybe pick one of the John Wicks though. For me, it's like one of the other ones.
See, I'm one of the few who probably haven't seen those movies. I definitely need to. I just because like not all of them have been on streaming service. Like I think I can watch 3 on HBO, but I haven't seen the first 2. So like. I don't know. I'm just kind of like waiting it out until they eventually all just come on a streaming service that I already own.
Nothing wrong with that. And remember, I always feel bad because like I could tell, and this happens with me a lot too. Do not feel bad about that because guess what? Yeah. They serve you. You don't serve them. You know.
That's right.
Like, don't you worry about it because like, it's so offensive to some people that you haven't seen this movie and you're like, whoa, like. But you get to John Wick eventually, man. I think you'll dig it. And
I'm sure I will.
It's really practical too for the most part, so it's not like something that if you watched it in 10 or 15 years you'd be like, wow, this is really dated. You'd be like, that looks still pretty good. But yeah, one of those, maybe the first one. John Wick, what was the third? I was trying to think of. Mad Max Fury Road is also really good. I've been meaning to go back and watch that one. It's so crazy too that they based a whole movie on like one car chase. Like it's just
it's fantastic.
It's like one
it's so
long
good
chase. And like that one, I think, and I've said it like a million times, but man, using CGI to like bolster the movie as opposed to making it the focal point, where it's just like, oh yeah, they added like mountains and deserts and stuff in the background, as opposed to being like, hey, we added like 1,000 more cars because we could. It's like they didn't do that, and it's just like, thank you, like, thank you for doing that. But yeah, I like Mission Impossible Fallout. It's so good. Anyway, but yeah, also I asked everybody what their favorite action movies were, just because I was like, I wanted to hear. Lodi has said possibly Die Hard 2. I don't know a lot about all the Die Hards. I've seen a couple of them. Is Die Hard 2?
Yeah, I've seen the first one, and I've seen With a Vengeance. So I've actually not seen Die Hard 2.
Yeah. Another one that I could speak a little more on was that Missile Mage sent in. It was just a GIF of Kung Pao Enter the Fist with the main character.
Oh man,
the chosen one opening up his tongue,
Kung Pao.
And then the tongue coming out. Again, a movie that would not exist today. They would not make this film today.
Absolutely not. Yeah,
it is hilarious. It has got some pretty good, decent action in it because it basically it's a movie that's ripped off literally another movie, and so the fighting in it is like pretty good. But man,
I am Betty.
I've only ever like almost just died laughing in the theater twice, and one of the times was Kung Pao as a kid. I thought it was the funniest thing, and I'll never forget when they're like talking about the chosen one, and he's walking through the desert, and he runs through the desert, whatever. They're like, and occasionally he drove through the desert. It shows him like in a red Cadillac, and it's like with his border collie. Oh my gosh,
chosen one! I'm coming.
I can't even. Oh, and the whole like. The James Earl Jones ripoff with like Mufasa and the clouds and the CNN bit, like it's so funny. Oh my gosh, Kung Pao, you gotta watch it with people though. I highly recommend if you're gonna watch that movie, watch it with people. Like he punches a dude's whole chest out, and they make a joke about it, and the guy comes back later on. I thought they were gonna make a sequel, but I think that was just a joke. Like at the end of that movie, they're like, a sequel's coming. It was a lie. I was lied to. Anyway, good choice, Missile Mage. I really appreciate that. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening and watching to us ramble on and just talk about all these things we love so much. If you ever have a question, a topic, a movie, or a game, or something you want us to cover here on the podcast, all you have to do is tweet the hashtag Critical Podcast. You can tweet our official account, which is @GoCritical, or you can tweet at me personally. I'm at JimmyGood013. However, if you'd like to tweet something at Steve, like say, hey Steve, you're a good-looking guy, and I appreciate your movie tastes and video game likes, where could they find you, Steve?
You can find me at +1 Bastek, so PLUSONEBASTEK. Yeah, I tweet about all types of stuff. Mostly, I've been tweeting about how much I just hate Twitter lately. So
yeah, that seems fair.
Twitter gets exhausting after a while. So I've been taking a couple of days where I just don't look at it as much, and it's much better.
I've tried doing that too. It was the same thing I tell people I used to do with Facebook, where I just scroll down like the home feed, and I'm just like. And then I get off, I'm like, what did I just like did that for 20 minutes, and it was like nothing, and it was just like sadness or like people just being mean. It's like, I just not always great. But I'm on there. If you tweet at me, I will look at it. I promise you I will. Like,
we can tweet jokes at each other. Let's bring some happiness to the timeline.
Yes, and that just reminds me, for people who watch this whole episode, what should be the hashtag that they watch it be?
Hashtag he'll live.
Dude, yes. It's so good. I thought that was so funny. Oh man, that kind of stuff. I want John and Terminator to have their own film. Like, I was like, oh man, these two, they're great. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching us. If you want to support us, we have a ton of different places to do so. You're probably seeing our Patreon pop up right now. You can do that, or we have Twitch that I'm on a bunch as well. My sister's going to start streaming soon too, so there's going to be more streams, all this stuff. But honestly, you don't have to do any of that. Just hanging out here is great. And we're on Spotify and like all those other places now. I'm trying to get them all on there, and it takes forever. So just forgive me, but they'll all be on there eventually. I need to hire an intern. I just need to like an intern. Be like, it's like $5. You want to do all this? Anyway, Steve, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure getting to talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me once again.
Oh my gosh, I want to find another action movie now just to talk with you about it.
Anything you want. Maybe we can talk about Ghost of Tsushima when we both play through that.
Oh my gosh, dude, that'd be great. That'd be so much fun. Okay, yes.
There you go.
Yes, let's go. Okay, cool, excellent. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and until next time, just remember to adapt and overcome.